Hey guys, we're going to go ahead and jump into the parenting tutorial. Go ahead and hop on the server, grab the parenting tutorial folder. You should see a parenting After Effects project file. Go ahead and open that up. And you should see this here. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started in here. So parenting is pretty simple stuff. It's already kind of going on, say, in our own body. You want to kind of think about parenting. My hand is attached to my forearm is attached to my arm, and my arm is attached to my body. And that's kind of how parenting works. And it's basically the same thing we're going to do right here. So let's take a look at some of the layers here. Got my background, a little car object. We got the body of our robot. We have an arm, a forearm, and a hand. So I want to go ahead and get some of this started. I'm going to go ahead and select my arm layer, which is layer number 3. And I'm going to move this arm right over top of the robot's shoulder here. Now just try and match up this little rivet here with this rivet here. And then the next thing I need to do is move my anchor point. Right now, if I was to rotate this layer, it would rotate from the center. And what I'm doing is a scrubby slider. I can actually click and drag on this rotation value and watch it move on the screen. But once again, it's moving from the center, and I want it to rotate from over here somewhere. So I'm going to make sure my rotation value is at 0. I'm going to go up here and grab my pan behind tool, which is this guy right here. And I'm going to go in and move the anchor point. Now I'm just going to go ahead and move this anchor point from the center of the screen over to the little rivet area, because this is where I would like that to rotate from. The next thing I'm going to do is my actual parenting. I need to attach this arm to the robot. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my selection tool, my arrow, and I'm going to start my parenting here. Now parenting can be achieved 2 different ways. There's an actual pull down, and this thing here called a pick whip. It looks like a cinnamon bun. Right now I need to parent the arm to the body. There's 2 different ways I can do that. I can go in here in the pull down and pick the body layer. I'm going to switch it back to none and show you guys the other way. If I grab this little pick whip right here, I can actually drag it to the layer that I want it to use. 2 different ways to get the same result. Either way, make sure your layer 3 is parented to layer number 4, the body. So if I go ahead and click and drag on my rotation value here, now the robot arm should be rotating like a chicken wing, or like a robot arm. Everything should be rocking out there. I'm going to go ahead and reset that value to 0. Next thing I'm going to do is the forearm, layer number 2. I'm going to grab my forearm, move it down here, same deal. Try and match up this rivet with this rivet here. Same rule is going to apply. I'm going to grab my pan behind tool here, and I'm going to go in and move this anchor point to where I want it to rotate from. Not the center of the object, but up here. Switch back to my move tool. So now I've got this set up to rotate properly. Next thing I'm going to do is parent my forearm to my arm. So with layer 2 here selected, I'm going to go ahead and select arm. So in layer number 2, the forearm will be parented to the arm, just like it is on your body. Cool. So let's see if this worked. If I go ahead and grab layer number 3, which is just the regular arm, you can see that these 2 will actually move together. That's how I know my parenting is working. I'm going to go ahead and reset the value on number 3 here, make sure it's back to 0. And I'm going to attach the final parts of this. So the next thing is I'm going to go ahead and take my magnet hand. Make sure you have your arrow tool selected. Make sure you're using your selection tool. I'm going to grab my pan behind. I'm going to move my anchor point to where I want the magnet to rotate from, which is going to be over here. And I'm going to go and parent the hand to the forearm, just like it would be in the real world. So layer number 1 is going to be parented to the forearm. Okay, at this point I've basically built an entire robot arm. What I'm going to do is select layers 1 through 3 and just hit R for rotation. Just click and drag on a couple of these and you can kind of see that our robot arm is now kind of rigged up. And what I want you guys to do is move this robot arm so that we can kind of pick up this police car. And what we're going to do is throw this thing off the screen. It's the motion graphics police. Try and get it close. Cool. So we're going to add one more piece of parenting to all this, and that's going to be we're going to parent the car to the magnet, just like it was picking it up. So if I grab my car layer down here, I'm going to parent the car layer to the hand. And what I want you guys to do is we're just going to do a little quick animation. We want the robot arm to flip the car off the screen. So what we're going to do is go ahead and do a little animation here. I am just going to angle my arms like this. Yours doesn't have to be exactly like mine. So at 0 seconds I'm keyframing the hand, the forearm, and the arm. I'm going to move it forward in time to about 1 second. And let's go ahead and I'm going to flip my magnet this way, flip my arm this way, and cool. So I've got a little basic animation. My robot's going to kind of flick this car this way. So you're just going to make rotation values for your hand, your forearm, and your arm. Now we're going to do one more thing. Right now this car is parented to the magnet, and that's cool, but if I want it to let go, there's a problem. You can't really parent and unparent. So we have a really simple trick to get this done. If you go ahead and select your car layer, make sure you're right at 1 second, which you can tell here, and make sure you're lined up with your keyframes right here. And I've got my car layer selected. And what I'm going to do is edit, split layer, or Command-Shift-E. And what it's going to do is split my one car layer into 2. Now the power of this is that now I can have the second part of the car. Here's the first part, we split it, now it's 2. So for the second half, I'm going to have it parented to none. And I'm also going to keyframe 2 things in here. I'm going to keyframe the rotation and the position. This is so I can make the car fly off the screen. So go ahead and let's move to 1 second and 15 frames. You can tell that from here. We've got hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. So as I slide this, I want to see 1:15. Cool, so now I'm at 1 second and 15 frames. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag my car off the screen to the top left. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a rotation as well. So that's kind of why we're keyframing both those values. Alright. So I go ahead and preview this. Our robot has his arm, and he's flinging the car off the screen. Now I have one final task for you guys. I want you to go ahead and make the robot arm dance around a little bit. So all we're going to do is just add some additional rotational values to the top 3 layers. The hand, the forearm, and the arm. If you go through and kind of animate these a little bit, we can get a little robot dance going on. And I just like to see you guys articulate this arm. Just do something creative with it. Doesn't have to be exactly like mine. But just by keyframing these rotation values, we can do some pretty cool stuff with this robot hand. So just make keyframes for the rest of your timeline. Once you're finished with this, go ahead and save it up. You're going to come around and check these off a little bit later. Robot's going to wave by now. Also, don't forget motion blur. There's two different places you guys need to deal with motion blur. There's one of these switches for each layer. Looks like an object moving very fast. And then there's a master on and off switch right here. It's probably going to make this all look a lot better. Take it easy, guys. Hope you learned something cool.